We're going to be talking about a sensitive topic today, and I don't want to lead you astray on this. Very important that if you are triggered by mention of someone being on the spectrum, anything like that, then this is not the video for you. This is a video for women who have experienced great pursuit from a man with intensity, with all the normalcy of what we see maybe in the movies, on TV, where a man is deeply in love. You know he is. He has pursued you, sometimes not really relentlessly, but certainly with a passion, and many times for a long period of time. And you experienced likely pursuit maybe that you've never experienced before, and if you did, this was someone that really you connected with and you got caught up with and you fell in love with, and then once you gave in and once you were reciprocal in feelings and you had a full-blown relationship, then he just dropped all the pursuit, the passion, the interest in a way that you are confused about. Because make no mistake, I do not want you to think that this is something for women who have been ghosted, dropped. They might be confused as to the why he went away completely and didn't bother telling her or talking to her about it or what have you. This is for women who are in a relationship and they love the man and they understand he loves you. However, the experience is deeply confusing, if not at times troubling to you, because what you have done heretofore in relation to men that has been working for you and good and you understand is suddenly not the case anymore. And it's almost like not being able to play by the rules anymore in a game and you don't know which end is up. This is for you if you are experiencing something like this, because it may be, and you're likely here because you might suspect that your man could be somewhere on the spectrum. And I want to clarify that because many people think on ends of the scale in terms of spectrum disorders, meaning all the way, to the right side of the scale, and severe Asperger's you may have heard about, or severe autism. And here's the beauty about people. We're all on a spectrum, so to speak, when you think about it. And this is a set of symptoms that are prevalent in people who are on the spectrum with autism. Asperger's is one of what is considered under the autism spectrum. So I want to answer some questions about that because it can be very, very confusing as to how could it have felt so incredibly, for lack of a better term, the normal pursuit of a man who is interested, knows he's interested, pursues you in a way that is normative and understandable, and you've felt things, and he made you fall in love with him through his pursuit and interest and intelligence and all manner of different qualities that he possessed. But you're confused as to then what happened. It seems almost suddenly that when you gave over, you're thinking you did something that maybe turned him off to you, but he's staying. Again, make no mistake, this is about women who are experiencing this confusion in their relationship, not whereby the man has left or gone, because that's typically not the case when we are dealing with an issue like this. When you are involved with someone who may be on the spectrum and he may not be diagnosed, but you are utterly confused. Again, I am not here to diagnose or help you to necessarily diagnose. What I can tell you is this. If, from what I tell you today, you get a little bit of clarity and you know that, oh my goodness, maybe I need to take a little bit of a different tact, and I can get through this relationship. I can make the relationship thrive to the degree any relationship can thrive, and go the distance perhaps, all of it. If I take some understanding from this and maybe move forward with my man in a way that might be helpful, whether or not there is a formal diagnosis. Because many of the books, and I'm going to give you some today, there's a couple of them that I think are really helpful. I'm actually going to read from a couple of them. When Your Man is on the Spectrum. Now this is to know, understand, and transform your relationship. This is more of a kind of a clinical approach. She talks about her research that she did. It's a very interesting book, but it's more comprehensive. This can be very helpful if you know your man has been diagnosed, even if he hasn't, because she talks about many of the women in her studies were not formally diagnosed. They just have a suspicion of it, and so this is very, very helpful. And I'm going to give you something about the pursuit here. Then this book, 22 Things a Woman Must Know If She Loves a Man with Asperger's Syndrome. Again, there is mention all of the time, because in adults, I'm going to talk about that, it's many times undiagnosed, because the symptoms are not severe, certainly not to other people. Many times friends, colleagues, they have no idea, and many times you will be experiencing things like, and she talks about this in this book and in the other one as well, you may be experiencing things like, well, he's just a man. But the confusion and the wrestling you have with trying to make sense of things is on a much deeper level than any of your friends or family can understand. And you start to feel like, oh my gosh, I'm going a little crazy here. And that's what I want to kind of alleviate for you, and then perhaps give you more help to make your relationship with a man you love work and go the distance. That's what I'm all about. And you can make things work with a man who you believe is, for lack of a better word, some people may call him quirky, or he's intensely focused on his avocational interests or vocational interests or something of the sort. Remember, any kind of disorder, especially a spectrum disorder, takes something that we in the what they call neurotypical population. It takes something that we neurally typically do and takes it to a different degree. And that's where we're talking about the spectrum kind of symptomology or presentation. So one thing that I think is really going to be helpful to you is from this book by Dr. Nina Arad. I'm not sure I'm saying that right, but I think this is a really good book, and you can get it on Amazon. So that you know from what I just said about it being an experience from the beginning that you would not have been aware of. For example, when a man on the autism spectrum falls deeply in love with someone, she often becomes his main area of interest for the courtship period. The courted woman is, of course, highly flattered by his intensive interest. Thus, it often happens that even if she hasn't fallen in love with him at first sight, or isn't immediately enthusiastic about him, it is very hard to remain indifferent to someone who wants her so much, especially if she's reached the relationship after a series of failed ones that have left her heartbroken and disappointed with men in general. Very often, the woman who is courted so intensely ultimately falls in love with the persistent suitor, and the way back is already much harder because she's in love. She says here, people with autism are more prone to addiction than others. This tells you why the intense, focused interest in the beginning. The tendency to become drawn into a certain area of interest takes over a large part of their time at the expense of other aspects of their life. And you being the interest of the moment, you become that. And that's why you maybe got that intense interest and focus, and like you are the center of his world. And in that moment and moments and maybe years or more, you are The problem begins where the autism spectrum may have reached the point where he has exhausted his romantic interest. That's what she's talking about. That later, as with many interests with folks in this way, they can be intense, but if they become problematic because of other what we call kind of spectrum issues, meaning personal communication, especially about feelings, it can really be a challenge. But it can be, as I said, I'm here to give you definitely a ray of hope if you are involved with someone you suspect is on the spectrum. And here's why many times there will not be a diagnosis. Because obviously if you're having a relationship with him, he's a very high-functioning person. He may be gainfully employed. As I said, other people in his life would not suspect necessarily. So, and this is from the Autism Research Institute, was first recognized in the Diagnostical Statistical Manual for Mental Disorders in 1980, and until recently was understood only as a pediatric condition. But this left potentially significant numbers of adults undiagnosed, unrecognized. And so, ergo, why there are many people, and again, spectrum disorders tend to be more prevalent in men, especially Asperger's. Our understanding of autism and its prevalence has evolved. Mid to late life diagnosis has become a more important topic in autism research, and certainly in relationships. So, adults on the spectrum commonly exhibit symptoms related to social and communication difficulties, repetitive behaviors, sensory processing difficulties, and issues with executive function and what is known as theory of the mind. I'm not going to go into that here, of course. But I wanted to give you some of the most shall we say, glaring symptoms, because I think that that's valuable to you if you're suspecting. And again, this is simply just a video, if you are a follower of mine, a subscriber of mine, to allow you to understand that you're not going crazy. It's not any of that at all, and you love this person and you want it to work, and it can. So, it is often difficult for adults with autism to see things from another point of view. That's one of the issues, and interpret nonverbal communication, such as eye rolling, shoulder shrugging, or other facial expressions. He may be prone to unintentional social blunders or misspeaking. Again, doesn't mean they're going to fit all of these symptoms, but if it's to the degree of symptoms. So, for example, experiences challenges maintaining conversations and staying on topic, responding perhaps with either long monologues or very short answers. That's it's to the degree. If it happens sometimes, hey, again, all of these behaviors are not out of the realm of normal. It's to the degree they become problematic in maintaining a relationship and making you believe that something is seriously amiss here when you've tried everything. Difficulty articulating personal thoughts or feelings. Now, you may say, well, Paula, you talk about that all the time with men. Yes. But again, who are we talking about here? Men are more prone to spectrum disorders, specifically Asperger's. So, and that is a hallmark, articulating personal thoughts and feelings. Now, again, might be able to pontificate on certain intellectual things or particular areas of interest that he has. He may know a lot of numbers, facts, and figures. Again, you're going to say, okay, well, my man has his baseball stats. Yes, you see, it is to the degree. Must remember that. He finds it a challenge to understand figurative language, or prone to taking everything literally. So that's why I do like this book a lot. I believe it's their dissertation research on talking with women and getting their stories. And if you're going through this, it can be seriously helpful. And of course, there's a lot of other books. Repetitive behaviors. If you're experiencing that to a degree, for example, it might be, a a focus that is off the scale and to the exclusion of other things. I know one woman in Dr. Rod's book talks about, he would come home from work and then go straight to the computer and be on the computer for hours, and it wasn't porn, and he could not relate to the children, and this was a really good man who it got to the point of the wife not being able to sustain the relationship because of the inability to communicate and for him to even empathize with her position. Okay, so that's another. Can he even comprehend and understand that while he may not agree with you, that he can understand that you have a position and a point, and if you don't get that, like you get in what we call neurotypical relationships, then something is amiss. And if he seems not to care when he's staying in the relationship, and for all intents and purposes, he wants to be there. Okay, that's another. Dressing. Many times it comes out in outward dressing in comfortable clothes when there needs to be formal wear, something like that. Preference for sameness and routine, and adhering to routine, and if routine is challenged or disrupted, then things can really fall apart quickly and they can have emotional responses to that. Many times there's self-stimulating behavior, things like with hands or tapping of feet, or now again, do not take these things oh my gosh, my guy taps his foot all the time. There are other disorders and things, and not even disorders, but just typical anxiety and related stress issues. And you really can't take one thing here. You really have to delve into the degree and the extent of what we would call under the umbrella of normalcy, or what is known now as neurotypical. I think I got this off of autism.org, but Autism Research Institute. Things in terms of executive function. Now, that I don't find to be as much of an issue in what we're talking about here today, and that means having a great relationship with someone. Because the executive function of the men we were talking about here, whereby you had no idea, were pursued very heavily, and then once a relationship was very established, he was comfortable, he went on to other focuses and seemed to drop the focus of you, and you felt the connection was dropped, that it was changed dramatically. But yet it's not that there's other women involved, and if you were to come to him with it, he would just say, this is what relationships are. Many times there's what we call a flat affect, and that is talking without animation much. Maybe there's a lack of laughter, or finding inappropriate or very immature things funny. There's many things, and if you are dealing with this and you want the relationship to go the distance, I can be of help there, because you can do things differently than you would perhaps with someone neurotypical. If you find yourself questioning a man you are seeing who's even not pursuing you, again we go to another part of this, and seems to be only interested in his one narrow focus area. It could be, here's a good example. He is a runner, and while he's really interested in you and he likes to see you, he will not adhere to his schedule of the training, the eating. It is absolutely forbidden for him to do anything outside of that in order to see you. And you think, well, he just doesn't want to be with me. He doesn't, but then he does, and he says he does, and it's confusing. And that's why I did this video today. I want you to know that if you are in that confusion, there's lots of help. You want to see someone if you're going to go to a therapist to get the support you need. I would suggest if you can even find a support group Oh my goodness. As a social worker, I ran support groups, and I have to tell you, they were just incredible in their support of those going through what the support group was focused on. Because there's nothing like knowing that you are not alone in this. And I can tell you, you are not. There are so many couples dealing with this issue. There are a lot of resources. You can get help. If you want to talk to me about it, I hope you'll connect with my assistant, Michelle, at coachpaulagrooms.com. You can go to coachpaulagrooms.com and connect with me there. On Instagram, Coach Paula Grooms. On here, leave a note and say, I'd really like to talk to you about this. I'm going through this. I'd like to get some, maybe just support, direction, referrals, what have you. I'm happy to help in that way, because I think it is so important. The men we are talking about can be incredible partners in that they will be loyal, faithful, and we all have challenges in life. No relationship is going to come without them. And if you love this person and you know he loves you and you want to give him that love in the best way possible, knowing what you are dealing with and guiding him in a very different way that will be supportive, that's the most loving and wonderful thing to do. And again, if you need more resources, you want to connect with me, there will be some below and how to connect with me. And I hope to offer more of this kind of material in the future. I trust you got a lot of good information from today's video, and I enjoy bringing you content that is valuable for success in your romantic life. So don't forget to subscribe and hit the alert bell so you don't miss any of my upcoming videos. And if you want more on any of the content you see here, you can go to my book, Why Won't He Commit? How a Man Decides to Make You the One. You can order it at any fine retailer where you get your books. And if you want more on me or any of my programs, my podcast, go to coachpaulagrooms.com, and we could be talking soon.